Hello everyone. Welcome to Module 3, Session 5, Understanding Contrast as a Principle of Design. So let's dive in. In your previous session, we have talked about variety and we have looked into why variety plays an important role as a principle of design and how it helps us to understand distinction and also unity in a composition in understanding or composing the overall layout. So today we'll talk about contrast and we'll try to understand how contrast is important in principles of design. So in design, the contrast refers to the use of opposing elements to create visual interest, highlight key components, and guides viewers' attention. It's one of the foundational principles because it makes elements stand out and create a clear hierarchy within a composition. Some ways designers use it to contrast, and that includes contrast with colors, right? Contrast with size, contrast with shape, and sometimes we use texture as a point of referring contrast. We'll go one by one by taking different examples. Now let's understand contrast with color. So if you see this image, right? So you can see how there is a distinct contrast in terms of the poster which they have created, right? And you can see a character here, and I am pretty sure most of you have might watched this movie Moonlight. So here you can see the story of a character which has been highlighted using contrast. So each segment in this composition highlights the phases of the character from teenage, right? From the young part to teenage to adulthood. And you can see a contrast in the character's emotion or the background story, as you can see some bruises in the middle part which is highlighted with a warm color. It feels like pink, right, because of the texture and all. And that's how the overall composition also narrates the three phases of the character in the movie. So here contrast is done using light versus dark colors, complementary colors, or warm versus cool colors to make specific elements pop. Next, I'm pretty sure all of you know about Google, right? So if you see the brand mark here, the G, it's segmented in different colors, and you can see four colors here identified clearly, which is red, yellow, green, and blue. And this brand mark is created using contrast with colors, right? And even if you see the overall logo where you can see all the alphabets, right, those alphabets are used to create contrast, right? And that's happening because of colors as a part of the representation. Next, yeah, so again this are the Olympic rings, right? This is the logo for the Olympic, and you can easily see how each ring is different in color, and because of that, contrast of the overall rings is being attained. And primarily, it is also known for representing each continent, right? So because of that, how each contrasting color is now creating a different set of meaning. As you have definitely learned in Shahid's course, right? How color creates mood or emotion. And this is where the idea of color is playing in terms of creating distinction of the different continent. Okay. Yeah, so this is again in terms of architecture, how some architect also use color to define some of the segment of their building, right? This is where you can see how orange color has been utilized to create a contrast and to create a vibrating feel of that particular building. You can see also light blue to be part of the compositions, and because of that, the overall building seems to be vibrant in nature. Next, I'm pretty sure most of you use digital apps nowadays because of the smart technologies, right? And primarily when you see the UI, right? And you can see easily most of the UI, especially in mobile technology or web-based, use colors to create contrast, to navigate the users, to make them understand which segment is what, right? So basically in layout, how when the UI designers take into consideration layout as a design, right? So they specifically look into colors to create segments such that it's easier for the users to understand where and how the overall information has been structured. So here in this image, you can clearly see how the top portion is just the gallery, right? And you can easily identify different segments in here. And this is happening because of the background color, which is creating contrast with this segment. Again, this segment is different and it may have a different functionality. So maybe here you swipe it from left to right, here you swipe it from top to bottom, right? So this is happening because of the choice of colors, and since we are used to it, we automatically will understand how it may function. Similarly, in rest of the images, you can easily identify how because of the color there are different segment, and each segment may have different functionality. So color is also now helping you to navigate any kind of application easily without giving large chunk of information or without creating overpowering information. Okay. Now let's come to shape, right? Contrast with shape. So primarily, if you can see this image, right, you can easily identify how all out of the overall composition, you can easily see how three are squares, right? One is triangle in nature. So because of that, you can easily identify the triangle segment to be more dominating or more prominent in the overall composition. So contrast in terms of shape, it helps combining different shapes like circle with squares to break monotony or to create interest. So here automatically your eyes get interested towards the triangular segment of this composition. So now let's see how the idea of contrast plays in logo design. I'm pretty sure most of you know about this Tokyo 2020 Olympics, right? And you can easily see how there is a contrast in terms of color and shape here. Color, why I have told, because it uses a bluish, darker bluish color, right? And there is a negative space which is white. So because of this, you can easily identify there is a contrast in the negative and the positive space, and you can easily see how there is a contrast in terms of shape. So within the logo, if you see, there is three variety of rectangles, right? One is this, the other is this, and the final one is this. So combining all of it, the concept of the logo has been addressed. Okay, and this also is done purposely to represent unity in diversity. It also expresses the fact that the Olympic and Paralympic games seek to promote diversity as a platform to connect the world. So when I was talking about Paralympic, you can see easily how the composition seems to be different here. Although the elements are similar, you can see all the similar elements are associated in each other, right? But here the composition is different, and because of that, there is contrast with shape. So even though these two seems to be talking about games, right? It's talking about Olympics, but because of this shape and the composition, now automatically you can easily distinguish this to be a different segment and this to be a different segment, right? So since we are talking about the Japanese Tokyo Olympics, right? So here the logo is also taken inspiration from Ichimatsu pattern, which is a Japanese traditional art. So you can definitely look into the web and go through if you're interested about that particular art. So it's taking inspiration from there, and you can easily identify how it has created a different meaning here in terms of representing the overall anatomy of the logo. So you can see the use of blue color, right? As I said, the blue was used, indigo blue, which also create a high contrasting representation in the overall negative and a positive space. Now, if you see the overall shape, right? If you can see the shape, right? There are three different rectangles, as I said. It creates a rhythm in the overall representation. And if you see the overall idea of the logo, it's quite different in that way. But you can easily identify the relationship between each other, right? And that's the main interesting part here, because now, because of the elements you are associating the relationship, so you are easily identifying this to be part of a similar brand, that is Olympic, Tokyo Olympic. But since the shape is changing here, automatically your brain is also letting you know that these two are from the same unit, that is Olympic, but the segments are different. Okay, and that's what it helps sometimes. So when you consider contrast with shape, and if you utilize it properly in a very thoughtful manner, definitely it will benefit you without explaining too much about that particular information. Okay, so let's see another example, which is again, I'm pretty sure you are familiar with Adidas, right? And these are two segments within Adidas. One is Adidas, which is associated to sportswear and all. The other is Adidas Original, which is associated to the trending fashion, right? Where uh, primarily it's more focused to as a fashion wear rather than sportswear. So if you see both of this logo, right, definitely the element like the color is similar in nature. So both are black in nature. So definitely you can see a relationship between that. On top of that, if you see the typeface here, right, the typeface are again similar in nature. So another relationship you can easily connect with each other. Next is the three layers, right, three stripes which they use as a part of their brand elements, right. Again, the three stripes can be seen here along with the three petals, right. So you are easily able to connect that these two are of similar brand, but because of the shape, so contrast with shape, you can easily say these two although are from the same brand, but these two are from different segments. So here is another example how it may help you by using the principles of design, that is contrast, to create a relationship, although providing a different meaning in each representation. Yes, so next again, it's a pictorial example where you can see how the arches, right? How the arches are similar in terms of overall representation, but if you consider the shape, it's quite different. So some of the arches are wider in shape, some are very confined and compressed in shape. Similarly, here in the lower segment, you can easily see that how it varies. But overall, if you look, you are always including this as a part of a composition. Although there are varied sizes, right? If you can see, there are different sizes, but the overall connection is always associated to the building. So this is how even the artists take benefit of such kind of principles in terms of representing the idea. Yes, I'm pretty sure you are aware about different products associated to Apple, right? And this is a good example how the essence of the brand is prevailed with the representation of similar colors or similar curves where you can see, right? And but the overall product is different in nature. So contrast in terms of shape, because of the different features each product provide, right, automatically there is a contrast with shape. but the DNA of the brand is always prevail in all the three segments. Okay, so we'll move to next example. Yeah, so this is again, these are two super cars, right? And one is from Lamborghini. This is another car manufacturing brand. Other is from McLaren. So both the car colors seems to be similar, even to a point that their overall stance seems to be similar. But again, because of contrast in shape, you can easily distinguish that these two brands are not from the same manufacturers, right? So one is McLaren, the other is uh, Lamborghini, and this is happening because of contrast in shape in terms of the headlights and the front bumper, right? So you can easily see there is a distinction in terms of shape representation, and that helps you to identify that these two are different brands, although the color seems to be close to similar to each other. Okay. Yes, so I think this is a very interesting example where I'm pretty sure all of you have used remote in terms of accessing your television, right? And here you can easily see how buttons uh, are designed in such a way that it creates contrast in the overall representation, and that contrast actually guides you or helps you to understand that each button with different shapes have a different functionality. So here you can easily see this is a one segment with a different set of design, right? And here again another segment with elongated button representation. Here another circular, right? In the lower segment it's more of a like elongated tablet kind of shape. So because of this, now you are already able to understand how the functionality might be, or it pretty sure it helps you to distinguish that if I click here the functionality will be definitely different. If I click here it's associated to the channel movement or maybe other segments, right, which you might look for. And here it again, the because of the texture and the representation, it definitely will navigate you to understand that this overall button may act differently compared to the rest of the button. So because of contrast with shape, it's easily identifiable, that it also helps you or navigate you to make you understand that the functionality may differ in such kind of layout. Yes. So next, again, this is a digital space where we are trying to understand how buttons or layout plays an important role in helping us to distinguish between different functionalities. So here you can see because of the colors, right, contrast and the outline. Sorry, here because of the color outlines and all, you automatically it has a different purpose. This layout has a different purpose in terms of addressing the application, right? The moment you shift here, so again this has a different category, and your brain will definitely uh, try to understand it in a different idea or perspective because of the layout, right, and how the content and the buttons are being arranged. Okay, so this is again an important part where you all have to understand as a designer that how contrast in terms of shape, size, and colors help us to navigate. And together when you see, you can easily create a uniformity, right? So because of the uniformity, it's easier for us to understand. Now, we are moving to the next segment where we'll talk about contrast with size. Okay, so we have talked about contrast with colors, right? Contrast with shapes. Now we will talk about contrast with size. And you can easily see in this picture how contrast in terms of size is happening, right? You can see all the three squares are same in size, but since one size of this square is larger, right, it becomes more dominating, or your eyes tend to move towards that initially. So here you can easily see in this picture how size is playing an important role, and because of that the contrast is happening in terms of the product representation. So as you can see, this is part of the bottles are part of a washroom, and primarily because of the shapes, right? You may also feel each product has different liquid filled, and it may have different usage. Next is another composition of typography which is done by Siddhi Sawan, a BDS student. So here you can see how the typeface in terms of size is creating contrast, and because of that size, your eyes tend to focus on the larger point side typefaces, and gradually it moves towards the lower side typefaces. Now because of that there is a information hierarchy. As you can see here, your eyes initially goes to the word memories, then jamming, then rest of the words which are associated in terms of different sizes, right? And this helps you to navigate. Now interestingly, because of the contrast with size, your eyes automatically navigated to different segment of this composition, and this is where designers take the advantage of contrast with size in using principles of design. Okay. Yeah, so this is another image. Where you can see how a similar brand or similar product can create a different set of hierarchy using contrast with size. Again, I won't explain too much, but it's self-explanatory. You can see, you can understand how the contrast with size is happening because of thick and thinness of the brush quality, right? And automatically, by looking at such kind of contrast, you will automatically realize that each brush has a different functionality because of the size. Yeah, so here you can see how just by changing the size of the circle, automatically the impact or the image which is shown in the slide creates a different emotion, different feel about that composition, right? So how now contrast in texture also is playing an important role to project different emotion or different feel in the overall composition. So designers can also take advantage from this to understand how it impacts your feeling in an overall layout or a composition just by playing with size of similar elements. Yes, so this is a website of an international conference, right? And you can see this is the landing page, and this is a website for ICOR, so 10, which is celebrated as the 10th international conference on research into design. So here now you can see two things are very much evident here in terms of size, color, right? It's quite prominent, right? So if you see the overall composition, definitely your eyes was going in this segment and this segment, and this is happening because we have talked about different perception when we have started the course, right? We had talked about how we human perceive the idea of images and text, right? We are more inclined towards perceiving images quickly compared to text, and here definitely because of this form your eyes would have gone first, then gradually it was coming on this segment that is left, and we also read from left to right, right, and top to bottom. So here automatically your eyes will go because of the contrast in size, right? So the size is much bigger in nature. Automatically your eyes will read this first, then gradually it will read the second segment where it's little bit less compared to the first, right, in terms of size, and gradually it will follow the overall composition. And once done with this, your eyes may also go for here, understanding what are the segments in the overall website. So this is where the fusion between the color and the shape is playing an important role in creating the hierarchy or the information flow in this particular composition. So now we are about to conclude this session, and I'm pretty sure by now you have got some idea about how contrast and impacts the overall composition, and it also creates meaning. So contrast as a design principle is deliberately used of opposing elements, okay, such as colors, shapes, size, textures, fonts, or to create visual interest. It may also use to create hierarchy and focus in design. So it helps distinguish important elements from the background or other content, guiding clarity, readability. So this is where I was talking about in terms of legibility also. So because of the background and a foreground color, right? So if you see the background color is white and the foreground color is bright blue. And again, this is in terms of how it's creating contrast between the background and the foreground. And it's easy for you to read the overall text, and it gets highlighted primarily compared to rest of the elements which are there. And this is how you can also play along as a designer to navigate your users. And primarily because of such kind of contrast, now your attention is focused on specific segment of this page, right? And this is the role of contrast. So basically it draws attention, right? Contrasting elements stands out from ensuring key information is noticed. So here the key information was uh, 10th International Conference on Research into Design, and this was some of the elements associated to that. So your eyes have went here, and this is happening because of contrast. Okay, so apart from that, it also establishes hierarchy. It highlights the relative importance of different elements and making the design more organized. Okay, and apart from that, again, if you see, it enhances the legibility. So as I said, right, because of the color choice, the typeface, everything comes into play. And it also adds visual interest, so it prevents design from looking flat or monotonous, apart from looking more vibrant or color, right, so colorful. So by using contrast effectively, you as a designer can create dynamic, engaging, and functional composition. So that's the recap which we have discussed now, and we'll move to the next segment. Thank you for your time. I hope you all have got some idea about the importance of contrast as a design principle and how it can be achieved in visual communication. We will end the session here, and we will meet you in our next session where we'll talk on repetition and rhythm in principles of design. Goodbye.